Since we all had one of those cards, our assumption is that we were here legally, permanently.
Permanent, correct.
Right? The word permanent means forever. Yeah. But just like a Sharpie, there's mechanisms and systems to remove that permanency. This current administration happening today, they're just snatching folks off the street.
Believe, do your own research, and I'm getting passionate about this.
Yeah.
Because that's the truth. A billionaire can get more billions, and a big corporation can, instead of paying 10 billion in taxes, now they're only paying 5 billion in taxes. So what can people do to protect themselves, their families, if they do have, a record? Yeah. What's your suggestions?
My mom gets Social Security.
And us in the future too.
Yeah, and us in the future.
Absolutely, our Social Security.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Yeah. Yeah. Here we come, baby. Let's do it. Yo, it's Uncle T.
What's happening, my good people? My name is Rango Lee.
And this is Mylin Pham.
And welcome to Blessed Voters, home of raw and uplifting stories of the human experience. Today we got a very, very, very special guest in the house. This topic today is so important. It's going to affect us all, especially people of color. I got my man Silong Chhun in the house.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to be here with Blessed Voters, and it's just looking forward to this conversation, man.
Oh, sure, for sure. And he's also running for Tacoma City Council, so
That's
definitely
right.
vote for him when that time comes next August.
Well, August is the primaries, and November is the general election.
All right,
so
August, November, go hit those ballots, because our man here got our backs. And also, he's a community advocate, so really important work he's doing today. So,
Wait, let me I want to know how both of you met each other, know of each other, because, it's not often we meet people who are running for council and all that. So it's like, I was like, wow, okay. So how did you guys meet?
Well, I can start and maybe Rango can finish it up. But back in the day, maybe 20 years ago, I was really into music and hip hop. I produced an album and had a group called The Second Language hip hop album. And I met Rango through just trying to promote the album. Rango was a big dog in the club promoting scene back in the day.
Wait, this is when you had that
record label.
Oh
Yeah.
my God!
So it's like a kind of like a holy matrimony match made in heaven. So we kind of just vibed off that. But Rango was just an avid supporter of what we were trying to do at the time, being Southeast Asians, being part of this community, and just being part of the hip hop community, trying to advocate and promote Asians in this arts and entertainment space here in Seattle. And Rango, to me, was just one of the biggest dogs in the scene. And I was a huge fan of him, and I was just really happy to have somebody like him support me and behind me. And we've just been friends ever since.
That is so cool.
Yeah, we were talking on the phone, and I remember you, so Richie Lee, my little brother, he was a rapper on our label.
Yeah.
And you also made beats.
Yep.
And I was like, hey man, produce something for my brother, and you blessed us with a really sick beat for one of his songs.
Do you guys remember the song?
No
idea.
It was 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
So you mixed.
No, he made beats. Like he made, the beats. And then also you performed at one of my events, right?
Yeah,
At the Premier nightclub.
The Premier
Showbox.
nightclub.
It was like a charity event, right?
Yes, I wasn't there, but my group was.
Yeah.
It was the biggest show that the group ever did, so thank you for that.
Oh, really?
They had a good time. It was a benefit show for when the tsunami happened.
Tsunami hit Thailand.
Yes.
Yeah, it was called Party to Save, and it was at Premier Sodo. For
Yes.
those people that know, there's Premier.
Sodo, yes.
There's Showbox Sodo and Showbox Pioneer Square, or no. Anyways, one of them venues.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was
Wow, that's so cool.
it was great. I wasn't there at the show, but I had a group and they were at the show and they told me they had a good time. Probably the best and biggest show that they'd ever done. I could make it up because I was in Cambodia. I was in Cambodia with my boy Pratch. Pratch is known as the first #1 rapper out of Cambodia. He brought hip hop music to Cambodia in 1999. And I've been working with him ever since. So I was actually in Cambodia and doing a little Southeast Asian tour of our music, of his
dope.
music there, because I produced his second album. And then, we did Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and we our last stop of the tour was in Cambodia, so it was just, such a great time. But I do regret missing the tsunami concert, but I heard it was a good thing.
yeah, we raised like 10,000 for relief for the Red Cross. And
Yeah, it was big news back then.
And rest
It
in
was horrible.
peace, Ted.
Yeah,
Big Ted.
yeah.
Rest in peace.
My boy Ted,
Yeah, I
passed away
remember.
a few years
You still
ago.
have the music. I would love to hear some of
Yeah.
the music that you guys created.
Maybe maybe at the end of this we'll close it out with one of you guys' hits or something.
Yeah. I'll send you the song. You know, I'm glad we're bringing it up because this year, 2025, is the 20th anniversary of the second language album. So we dropped it in 2005. You know, we went wood. You know what I'm saying? We didn't get a lot of.
Instead of going platinum, he went wood.
I'm glad you got
You
that.
went bamboo. You went bamboo.
Yeah, we
wood.
went bamboo. Yeah, you know, commercially it wasn't a success, but I felt like the music that we did and produced was a success to me because the impact that it had on our community. Like the second language album really resonated throughout the United States. Till this day, I have a whole bunch of friends on the East Coast, New York, Jersey, Philly, that I maintained a relationship with because of that album. You know, even though we didn't make it commercially, because, you know, we're Asians in hip hop in a black dominated industry. It was really hard to break through.
Very hard.
And even till this day, like, even no matter how successful Asian Americans are, specifically Southeast Asian Americans, the industry the powers that be don't know how to promote us. A good example of that is Jin. Remember MC Jin?
MC.
Yeah.
Freestyle Friday got signed to Rough Riders. When he got signed to Rough Riders, they didn't know what to do with him. Yeah, right. And I was talking to Viet Thanh Nguyen about The Sympathizer. HBO spent a whole bunch of money producing the show, great series. Check that out, by the way. It's on HBO called The Sympathizer. Pulitzer Prize winner, Vietnamese author named Viet Thanh Nguyen. Great show, great book. I asked him how he felt about it and the accuracy between the story and the adaptation to the TV series. He said he appreciated, he loved it, but the only thing that really slight disappointment, but not really, was the marketing aspect of it. So that just, to me, is a testament to, like, you know, the industry doesn't know how or who to market us to. So it's up to you, it's up to us, up to Blessed Boaters to continue to tell our story and be the marketer and show the people that there's an audience and a desire for these type of content. So I'm blessed to be on here.
Yeah, absolutely. So share with us a little bit about your family's refugee story from Cambodia.
Yeah, I am a refugee from Cambodia. I came to the United States when I was 2 years old. We were displaced because of the American War, right? Here we call it the Vietnam War, but on our end we call it the American War. Well, the Khmer Rouge, after the Vietnam War ended in 1975, the United States pulled out of Cambodia, and then the Khmer Rouge took over. When the Khmer Rouge took over between 1975 and 1979, an estimated of 1.5 million to 2 million people was murdered during the communist regime. So about a quarter of the population was murdered, you know, famine, war, everything. It was just it was hell on earth, right? So my mom and my dad, blessed their hearts and their soul, were able to survive all 4 years of the tragedy. And we were fortunate enough to be able to escape at the end of the war. You know, Vietnamese troops ousted the Khmer Rouge in 1979 in January. I was born 5 days afterwards. So I was born in the jungle. My mom was on her way to Thailand to the refugee camps. So, you know, I don't have a birth certificate. And because not having a birth certificate, being born during a war, is still affecting me today with these policies of this current administration. But anyways, my family and I came here in 1981. We were really fortunate to have family that was already here and kind of established. So we were able to get sponsored by a Catholic church, and my family and my uncles who came before us really laid the foundation for us to create a life and set a foundation here. So I grew up on the east side of Tacoma, and, you know, largest influx of refugees in the United States history with the Southeast Asian refugees in the 80s under the 1980 Refugee Act. And with such a large influx at such a one time, the United States really wasn't prepared to handle all these folks coming. So they didn't have adequate resources, adequate housing, or just didn't even know what language we spoke, right? So navigating a brand new country with nothing was extremely difficult for my family and I. And I was just really blessed to be able to kind of rise out of poverty because of the opportunities that was given to us. But saying that, the journey from being displaced from a country, from war, being uprooted from your family, coming here, not having much, growing up in the hood, being a product of your environment, a lot of my peers, a lot of my colleagues and the generation before me got into gangs, right? They got into gangs, they committed a lot of crimes, did their time, Now, 20, 30 years removed from that, they all have families, but, no one ever told us that we weren't citizens. When we came here as legal residents, permanent legal residence was our status. We call them, what was it, resident alien? Resident alien card. Did you have one of those?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Since we all had one of those cards, our assumption is that we were here legally, permanently.
Permanent, correct.
Right? The word permanent means forever. But just like a Sharpie, there's mechanisms and systems to remove that permanency. So that's what we're seeing today with these deportation and policies. So, it's just been a crazy journey. The war ended 50 years ago, but as you can see, the impacts of war resonates till this day. So that's the story of my family. It's not a unique story to my family. A lot of similarities to, Vietnamese like yourselves, refugees, and the Hmong and the Lao community as well.
One point on that is what's tragic about the Khmer Rouge in your story is that they killed off the people that are intelligent.
Yes.
Right? And landowners, but anyone with intelligence that was doing something, they saw them as a threat.
Yes.
And so then you guys lost maybe your brightest minds, of your country.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy shame. Vietnam didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. There's a stark difference, also, although we share the same commonality, the same foundation of being displaced because of war, our circumstances was largely different. Like Rango mentioned here, one of the first actions of the Khmer Rouge regime was to get rid of the intellectuals, was to get rid of the artists, get rid of professionals, get rid of all these institutions that promoted culture, anything that had to do with Western influence they got rid of. So even if you wore glasses, the assumption that you wore glasses, that you were smart, you were literate, they would just murder you, right? So as you said, Cambodians lost a whole generation of knowledge, wisdom, artists. They got rid of movies, they got rid of music. They kept a couple artists and songwriters to,
Did they get rid of these people? Definitely the wealthy people too. People with money, like period.
Yep.
If you had money, you're gone
You're a
because
threat.
you oppress.
Yes.
They thought you oppressed everybody else, and some of them did, but
Yeah.
most of them were just wealthy people, right?
Yeah. The thing is, it was a class war, right? The Khmer Rouge were largely, the leaders of the Khmer Rouge were highly educated. They were educated in France, picked up Marxism, picked up communism, but the supporters of the movement were largely farmers, rural, uneducated folks who didn't have access to education, so they were easily manipulated. So the easiest thing to do to exert control is to remove education, because when you have free thought education, you're able to critically think, you're able to challenge.
Kind of like what's happening right now, right? With the dismantling of the Department of Education. You know what I mean? All right, we'll get into that. But
Yeah, and
yeah.
Pol Pot, the leader of the Khmer Rouge, said, no revolutions has been as fast as ours, but the destruction was the intention. They didn't have anything to replace it. So you see, as in 4 years, turmoil and chaos just spiraled, where almost a quarter of the population passed away. So I wanted to touch back on the refugee journey too. When the North Vietnamese toppled the South Vietnamese government, a lot of the South Vietnamese folks were the refugees that came to America. So there are a lot of merchants, already educated, resources, was a little bit more, not prosperous, but had a little bit more than Cambodians came in. Cambodians came here uneducated, nothing on their back. So it took us a little bit more time to kind of get our setting. Like even 50 years later, if you look at it in Tacoma, we only have one Cambodian restaurant. You know what I'm saying? And there's on 38th Street, we have like 6 pho restaurants and all phenomenal. Yeah, I love it. I love seeing like there's so much space for, it's just like having 8 Starbucks within a block. I'd rather have 6 pho restaurants and 8 Starbucks. So there's room and space for everybody. To my point, you can see the difference in the economic mobility in our communities, educational mobilities. But I think as our Cambodian community at large, I think we're finally catching up 50 years later.
We're definitely neighbors, brothers.
Absolutely,
when
brothers.
when I see my Cambodian brothers, I'm like, that's us. That's like us. Then Filipinos. And we don't meet too much Laos and Thailand because they never had a war and they never had to leave. The Cambodian, Vietnamese.
Well, I want to say Laos. Laos was the most bombed country.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Thailand, I'm still trying to. I need to do some more research, but Thailand was really insulated from the war. They didn't get affected. They accepted refugees.
They're over there doing their own thing.
Yeah, they had refugee camps. They were really insulated. But Lao was a victim too. Lao is, I think they get left out of conversation because, like Cambodia, a lot of the population suffered. I mean, during that war, they were the most bombed country during that war. So.
Yeah, but I think their populations are small.
Yeah.
The ones that came here, but we kind of throw them all together. Like, you talk about Laos, you talk about Cambodian.
Yeah.
So that's kind of segue into what we're here today to talk about is the immigration policies affecting Asians and people of color. So let's talk about that. Like, first, let's talk about your community. Because you guys, like right now, you guys aren't just facing this stuff the last 2 months. You guys have been facing this stuff for years now. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, 2 decades. The Cambodian community experience with deportation and immigration, it's really kind of unique and siloed because Cambodia was really one of the few countries to take deportees back. And it all started in the 1990s when Bill Clinton was in power. He ran on as the Democrat who's tough on crime. And, I just want to put it on record that no matter who is in power, Democrats or Republicans, conservative, liberals, left or right, it doesn't matter. These policies still affects us the same way, right? So when the 1990 crime, I'm not sure, I think it was 96 or something. Anyways, when the Clinton administration passed the crime bill to try to curb crime and reduce crime, the American minorities, like the black communities, the Hispanic, Latino communities, experienced the school to prison pipeline, whereas Cambodians and some Southeast Asians experienced the school to prison, the deportation pipeline. So our community was really swept up under that law. So when that law was enacted, you were able to go back to past convictions since you're not a citizen and get punished twice. So a lot of these crimes that the Cambodian community fell under was crimes that was already committed like 10, 15 years ago, and they've already served their time. But since they weren't citizens, and since the crime was deportable, they were on a deportation, right? And then as time progresses, we had a community member here in Seattle. His name is Manny Ut. He's my OG, Bang Mani. He was the first one to go through the process. He was the first one to fight his convictions, the first one to get a pardon, the first one to, be on a path to citizenship. So he has a wealth of knowledge. And then as time progresses, 2005, 2010, 2016, we call Obama the deporter in chief. But the difference between the Democrat administrations and the Republican administrations of deportation processes, I think Obama's administration respected the law, respected due process. So everybody had their day in court to prove themselves. Mm-hmm. Whereas you can see this current administration happening today, they're just snatching folks off the streets. Unidentified ICE agents with masks on, not identifying themselves, snatching you up and just throwing you in detention without any process, So my message to the folks who are celebrating seeing these students and these activists getting snatched up without due process, I just want you to remember, if you're a citizen and you're celebrating these things and you're celebrating the lack of due process, the due process is the part where you get to prove your citizenship. So I'm a citizen, naturalized citizenship. If I was to get snatched by ICE walking out this building and they don't allow me due process, they can just throw me in detention forever and not give me an opportunity to prove myself, prove that I've been here, prove anything. So they could just send me and detain you indefinitely. And they have an incentive to do that because the GEO group who runs these detention centers are contracted by the government. So every bed they fill, they get money. So they don't have an incentive to have you leave, to have you get out of the prison. So it's just a whole clusterfuck, man.
So how much are they getting per head? Do you know?
I don't know what the numbers are, but it's enough to keep folks in prison.
And I heard that Cambodia, they get a bonus per head they send back, right?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So
I think in the early 2000s, I don't know the numbers. I don't want to, espouse information, but there's definitely an incentive for Cambodians to take refugees back. But in the early 2000s, there wasn't any infrastructure to accept deportees back. You have to imagine these guys grew up here since they were 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
spent their whole lives in the United States, lost the language because they were learning English, and then they go back, and then they're in prison in Cambodia, they get released, they don't have any family, they don't speak their language, they can't work. And, a lot of the early deportees in our community just really had an unfortunate situation where they would get into drugs. A lot of them commit suicide. And, today there's infrastructure there. There's NGOs there that will receive deportees.
And NGO stands for what?
A non-governmental organization.
Yeah, NGO, yep.
Yep. And there's a lot of programs out there that would help deportees today that will get them IDs, get them jobs. And, I don't want to say there's a silver lining, but being in America for so long, getting deported to Cambodia, and you speak the English language, it kind of gives you an advantage and benefit now. There's a lot of more opportunities than there was in the early 2000s. So, there's some silver lining there, but, separating families is just re-triggering the trauma of war, because you've been displaced and separated from your families in the 70s, and you come here, now you're trying to get your life, once you got your life back together, now you're being uprooted from your family again. And that's the ripple effects of that is just
right.
damaging.
It's to me, it's crazy. Like, growing up in America, especially growing up in the poverty,
sure,
we had to get ahead. So some of us sold some marijuana, some of us stole cars.
Yeah.
Some of us had to protect ourselves, so we joined gangs from the other neighborhood gangs.
Yeah.
And so we had to have a little stuff, get ahead a little bit. And stuff that you do at 16, 17, 18 years old it's you make bad decisions at 16. So fine, you get arrested, have a felony, pay your time, do your time.
Yeah.
And then after you get out, because you're Cambodian, they
or even Vietnamese, any Southeast Asian, not just Cambodian.
Yeah. But back then they didn't take back Vietnamese. I'm talking about Cambodian. They took them back, right?
Yeah.
And then you're a whole different country,
right?
With like no support. And Cambodia is, it's a hard country to grow up in. If you're from America,
especially
period,
back then.
right? No family, and so you guys been dealing with that for a long time, like our Cambodian brothers and sisters. But now it's hitting home for us Vietnamese, right? Like 2 months ago when this administration came on. You sent us the article that Vietnam is now taking back people with felonies.
Yes.
Right? People that have a record. And they haven't, and the reason why you said they're taking them back because the Trump administration is saying in Vietnam, if you don't take people back, we're gonna put tariffs on your exports.
Yeah. So
the Vietnamese government's like, oh, we don't want no tariffs,
Right.
So we'll start taking them back.
Yeah.
So I think any time now, within this time or the next couple of weeks, they're gonna start taking them back, which is insane for our community because we've been hearing about Southeast Asians getting sent back to Cambodia, but we never thought it would be Vietnamese people.
Right.
But now it's hitting home to our families, our community, our circles.
Yeah.
So man, let's talk about that. What can we do to fight against that and protect our people?
Any guidance? You've been through it these years now.
I think if you have anybody, family members, friends in your community members who are on the list to get deported or an order of removal, and even if checking in with ICE, because a lot of folks have been checking in with ICE their whole lives, and usually it's just a quick check-in, see how you're doing, make sure you're not committing
crimes. It's
like
a yearly check-in, right?
It depends what your crime is, how severity.
Situation.
Some folks check in every 3 months. Some folks check in every 6 months. Some folks check in once a year. Some folks check in once every 10 years. But
okay, no.
Yeah. But what we can do now is really just to connect with organizations like the Northwest Immigrants' Rights Projects.
Okay.
In Seattle, we have the Seattle Clemency Project.
But I also heard with that organization that they don't, because they've been dealing with a lot of like Cambodians and that type of Southeast Asian, but because this is happening so quickly, they don't have a department. Actually, I called and tried to get some information, because who else do they go to, right? But they don't have a department set up yet because it's just not enough time.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
if you think about it, our community is part of this bigger process too. You have Argentinians, Venezuelans, even Ukrainians.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, gosh.
But you don't hear about white refugees and immigrants much because ICE, the way they profile folks is if you're brown, you're most likely. But anyways, let's get back to the topic of Vietnamese deportations.
Yes.
The United States government and the Vietnamese government had a moratorium of understanding. It's called an MOU. That if you're Vietnamese immigrant or refugee pre-1995, you can't get deported because you came because of the war, right? That's one of the reasons why the United States accepted refugees in the first place, because it's kind of them admitting fault of they went over there, they fucked up, they lost the war. Now you displace all these people. So since the end of the war, this moratorium has been in place, but the first Trump administration renegotiated that, and you can see he's president again now, and now he's that renegotiation is coming through, and now Vietnam is accepting Vietnamese refugees who came here before 1995, when that never happened before. So to answer your question, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really difficult to kind of try to intake a new community that hasn't gone through this before, but it doesn't matter which community you're from. The immigration processes are the same, no matter if you're Cambodian, Ukrainian, or from Colombia. If you're here as a legal resident and have some kind of crime that's deportable, you're still deportable. So the process is still the same. So if you have any community members or family members that need some assistance and guidance, hit our group up. We're called the Khmer Anti-Deportation Advocacy Group, and we've been doing this work for about a decade now. And Bang Mani, the person I mentioned before who went through this in his early 20s, he's now 40. I mean, he's got a citizenship and moving to Cambodia now to help deportees.
Oh, he's in Cambodia now?
Yeah, well, he's only moving there to work. He's going back and forth. He's going there so he can better receive Cambodian deportees to prepare for the influx of, our brothers and sisters going back to Cambodia. So we've been able to do this work where we're now looping around. But give us a call. Every case is different. Every immigration case is different depending on how the severity of the crime, where it was committed. Each state has their own laws. The state laws and federal laws. We have to determine the strategy on how to combat or remove your conviction, because the process is whatever deportable conviction you have on your record, we have to remove that first. After you remove that at the state level, now you go to the federal court to say, hey, the state has removed this law, I'm not deportable anymore. And it's really up to the judges, the federal judges, to grant you that.
How would people contact you? Like, say someone who's watching Blessed Voters right now, like how would they, I'm scared it's gonna be an influx.
Yeah,
like, how
for
would
sure,
they
for
contact
sure.
you?
Yeah, just hit up our website at khwa.org. It's spelled KHAAGWA.org. And all the information to reach us is on the website. And we do have an intake form. We're partnering with the Seattle Clemency Project on intake form. So if you have a criminal record, a state record, just fill out that form and we'll help you navigate through the form, and we'll get it to the right people to take a look and assess your case.
I do have one more question, if that's okay. So I mean, I know what people, they're scared.
Of
okay,
course.
so like, even say if they reached out to you and they're scared and they're like, oh, what if I have to open my case again? What does that look like when you said that you had to look at their case and you might have to decrease the crime or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So you're opening up something and now they're in the radar, So how, a lot of people are scared. They don't want to be in the radar. So how does that look like for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And every single family approaches it differently, but I just want to reassure you that everything we do is confidential. We don't make our work public. It's really hard to communicate what we do to the community because a lot of folks, a lot of families that are going through this, it's kind of shameful, right? You come here and live your life doing the best you can with what you got, and then you just kind of get tripped up in the systems that weren't designed to help you thrive, right? It was really designed to keep us down. So it is a sensitive topic. What we do is treat every person's case and every intake form with care, and we really consult with the family how they want to move. And a lot of some folks are willing to tell their story, some folks aren't. But to ensure security and privacy, we work with people who really care. We work with community members who's been through it. We work with lawyers who have families who's, might have somebody detained right now. So we approach it with empathy and care and caution, So and there's no guarantee for anything, but, it just depends on the severity of crime and who it is. We've helped folks get their convictions vacated when they were in a drive-by, and murdered two people, and that happened when they were 15, 16 years old. Shameful, right? And we've even worked with someone who has been accused of sexual assault. We try to help anybody and everybody we can. We do have a pretty serious and restrictive vetting process. because I mean, some crimes are so severe. It's like, man, we can't touch that,
Yeah,
right?
understood.
But I do want to let people know that we are here to help. We are here to protect you, and we're here to help you navigate and keep you with your families, because the uprooting and separating families, the impacts of that just resonates deeply in the community. Imagine you're a young person in high school and you come home and your mom got snatched up. Now you're not thinking about school.
No.
You're stressed out, right? You're thinking about your mom, how to get them out, and then now you're not going to classes. Now you're getting kicked out of school. You're supposed to graduate and go to college.
Yeah.
So the ripple effects resonate so deeply. The impact is so disastrous.
Yeah, and now it's also affecting the Filipino and Chinese community. There's in the news right now. There's a Filipino lady. She had some kind of misdemeanor, not even a felony, misdemeanor. She travels to. She works for UW. She works at some department there, and then she travels to the Philippines. She comes back, and they snatch her up at the at the airport. So and now she's in ICE detention center.
Yep.
And like she's like super not threatening to the government, the economy, right? And they snatched her up. She's Filipino, and then there's another Chinese gal that we talked about. Student. She was a student. She was an activist. She attended some protests. Yeah. And she's been there since she was little. Yeah. And then they snatched her up, and she's getting a lot of news because she was here since she was little. Right. On a student visa and stuff like that.
And this administration is trying to deny her due process.
And I think what's happening is because she was in the protests and against, the president and his policies. That's why she got kicked out and centered out and snatched up. Yeah. So it's almost like they're trying to squash freedom of speech. Yeah. What's happening right now, right? Like with a kind of bully, aggressive, violent technique.
There's no question that these actions of this administration are illegal. The Constitution protects our First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. We are in this country. Due process is what separates us from a dictatorship and democracy. Yeah. When you remove due process for one group of people, it's gonna spill into another group of folks too. And not just brown folks. Recently, I'm sure you heard of it, the Canadian lady who was detained in ICE for 2 weeks because she worked for a company that made some drinks that had hemp in it, and they felt that was illegal, and they detained her for 2 weeks. And she just dropped an article, and she said if she wasn't a white woman with connections with friends, she would still be in there. And she was talking about her process, and like every single woman that she met in detention with her for 2 weeks didn't commit any crime. A lot of them are teachers, a lot of them are nurses, a lot of them are here on student visas, a lot of them here are H-1B visas. You know, when you're in the United States, you're working and you have to renew your visa. Sometimes your visas get denied because, bureaucracy, paperwork. And just because your visa application, your renewal get denied, categorize you as, illegal, but you've already been here doing the work. You're just still going through the process. So these folks are getting, catching strays of the ICE immigration, and you can see how unfair and dehumanizing this process can be for a white woman. Imagine what it is for a brown Filipino woman, folks like us, and just going through this process that don't have connections to politicians or lawyers or whatnot. And a lot of these folks who are snatched up in ICE today don't even speak English. So imagine what they're going through. And you have to understand the GEO Group, they are a business that's receive funding from the federal government, which is our tax dollars. So our tax dollars are funding these inhumane practices by this group.
And the bigger picture is the Latin Americans that's been getting deported back to Latin America.
Not even their own country. You have Venezuelan go to El Salvador. That's so How racist is that?
To the worst prison in El Salvador just because they're willing to take them back.
Right.
And then I'm a builder and I'm in the real estate industry, so I have a lot of contractors that are Mexican. But man, they're the hardest working people I ever met, and just straight people, right? Yeah. Want to work hard, send money back to the Latin America, Mexico. Yeah. Like that's what our family did all those years, right? We work hard, we send money back home. You're just trying to make a better living for ourselves.
And they pay taxes.
They pay taxes.
They're the hardest working people.
And so
building this economy.
That's one thing I don't agree with. It's just like the mass roundup of all of them, sending them back. Fine, like go ahead. They're already here in the country. My opinion, right? They're already here in the country. Let them go through their due process of getting their naturalization.
Yep.
But go ahead, close up the border for
Yeah.
more people to come in.
Right.
Again, close it up. Our southern border is a little shady.
Yeah.
It is a little
Yeah,
easy. A little easy for people to get in. I have to agree to that. But I mean, we're talking about hundreds. Probably thousands of miles that they have to protect. It's very hard
Yeah.
to protect like that much.
Yeah.
But it's like, and then, those jobs that Latin Americans are getting, that are doing, it's stuff people that Americans don't want to do. Clean bathrooms, right? Pick crops.
Absolutely.
Right? Like go swing a hammer and like labor jobs, hard labor jobs. Like, it's just
serving now, even waitressing. Like
Yeah.
a lot of like these
Yeah.
jobs, like
Dishwashing.
they're doing it and building our economy. But,
Yeah, that's
and
how-
they're trying to build something here and help the
Absolutely.
economy here. So I just don't get it.
That's how my family got our footing. We worked on the farms out in Puyallup, Washington. Aldor's Farms gave us opportunities. We
picking what?
picking all the berries,
All the berries?
I remember that.
cucumbers, dill, strawberry, and we
Yeah.
weren't. Our family didn't just pick them. We laid we weeded the fields. We planted the seeds in preparation for this. For the summer season, because that's how I got my school clothes. I bought my first pair of Reebok pumps because I worked in the field for $4.95 an hour. You know what I mean?
And that was, it was, I remember I went one time with my Cambodian homies that lived in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So we left early, like at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we drove far, like 2 hours. I don't know where it was. I was like in 6th grade or something. And they're like, all right, you guys gotta bend down and pick strawberries. We're like, all right. Like, I was bending over. I was like, damn, this shit is hard.
It's hard work, bro.
You know? And then I took this whole box back. It took me like an hour and a half, 2 hours to pick up this box. Took it back to the lady. She gave me like $1.25 or something for like this huge box of strawberries. I'm like, man, I'm gonna make like $5 today at this pace.
Yeah.
It was just the hardest work though.
It
You
is.
know, and
It is.
that was my last
Backpacking
time
work.
going too. But my Cambodian homeboy and his family, they went like every weekend. Right?
Yeah.
That was their income.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
for me, working on the farm was really an opportunity to earn money for school clothes. Because, when you're poor, you go to school with old, dirty, ragged shoes and clothes. You get made fun of, man. It's not
Right?
cool.
I should have told you how to hustle, do the return strategy. What was telling you? So we were in that strategy, that problem too. So our hustle back in the days, and we met some black guys from Oregon, and they said, "Oh, you guys want to come up?" So he said, "Go to Goodwill or Value Village, get these Dockers, right, for like $1.25." And then you tear the zipper, and then you take it to like Macy's or Nordstrom or JCPenney,
Yeah.
and you say, "Hey, my mom bought me these Dockers for church, and the zipper tore, so I need a refund. It's defective. I need a voucher. I need some new Dockers." And so we all had super clean clothes because that was our hustle, right? We didn't know how to pick good strawberries like you guys, so we had to do the street hustle.
Well, you guys are smarter. That's hella smart.
So let's talk about going back to the immigration crisis going on for all the people of color in America. So what can people do to protect themselves, their families, if they do have, a record?
Yeah.
What's your suggestions?
I think a lot of our communities who have criminal records that aren't citizens are already checking in with ICE. The frequency of the check-ins can change depending on your case. I think when you do have any upcoming check-ins, make sure you go with a lawyer. Make sure you go with some family members, because there's a really real high possibility that you go in there and you don't come back out.
Oh man.
And I'm not a lawyer. I can't give any legal advice, but it's always good practice to always go into a check-in. But you're not really legally required. I can't really tell folks that, because once you miss a check-in, now you become
You're definitely on the list.
But you're already on the list.
yeah.
Maybe like a warrant or something now because
Right.
you
It gets
missed the check-in?
elevated to the next step, whatever that
So
is.
go to the check-ins.
Yeah, go to check-in, but go with a lawyer.
Lawyer up.
It's lawyer up, and there's a lot of pro bono services. Like I said, the Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project is a good one. The Seattle Clemency Projects, the Washington Immigrants Solidarity Network is a really good resource. La Resistencia anti-deportation group that's been protesting our NWDC, the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma, for the past decade. So what I would recommend is reaching out to all of these advocate groups. There's different avenues, different ways, and A lot of folks are willing to help. A lot of folks are willing to step up. A lot of pro bono lawyers who aren't necessarily immigration lawyers, but they have been through the immigration training to learn the basics. Because immigration is difficult. It's a shit show. As you can see, immigration has been a huge hot topic since the inception of this country, right? We started with the Irish immigrants who were being chastised and marginalized, and you have the Italian immigrants, and then you have the Chinese immigrants, and now the trope and the message is still the same. They're here, they're ruining our country, taking our jobs, destroying our way of life, which is not true. I think every single person, every single group that came here as immigrants has enriched and added to the fabric of this country.
And you also suggested stay low. Stay low. So stay low.
Yeah, stay low.
What stay low mean?
well, just stay low key.
Yeah.
Don't bring attention to yourself, and for real, let folks that have the privilege, like myself, who's a naturalized citizen. I think I have a privilege to use my voice and amplify other folks' voice, and let folks who are on the front lines do the speaking for you. But at the same time, take care of yourself, take care of your family.
Maybe don't fly anywhere
Right now.
Maybe don't go to Canada because you have to come back and they might. I'm just saying, which
Go on Canada anyway, just to go on that list.
Yeah, I think Canadians don't like it.
They don't like us right now.
No.
And that's okay. But we like them still.
Yeah.
We like their exchange rate though.
Yeah.
We like and they got some good food in Vancouver too.
Yeah, I feel like when I go up to visit Vancouver, I feel like I'm getting a 30% discount.
Yeah.
But we love Canada though, man.
We do.
We're sorry. We're sorry to the Canadians and the Canadian homies.
You know, all the resources, you know, if you're watching today on YouTube, we'll have it in the description below, and there are links, and hopefully that will help you guys out if you guys are going through this, as well as on our Instagram page on Blessed Voters as well. So all that information will be there. And thank you so much again for giving those resources, because a lot of people don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And so then, right now in the news, they're talking about Trump administration is trying to do that law during the Japanese War where they sent back. What's the law?
That's the Alien Enemies Act or something like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. To just speed up everything. To send it, and then I heard the Supreme Court blocked it. But then they're still trying to push it through. And if the Trump administration is allowed to do that, then people will just get sent back quick without no due process.
Yeah.
Just because they think that America's at war with them, so that's why they could send them back. And that's a crazy. That's a crazy thing to push through.
Yeah. It's a display of power. It's a display of defiance with this administration. And I think it's just really them testing the waters to see how far they can go. Because you look at the facts, when the judge blocked that order of deportation, the plane was already in the sky.
In the air. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And they're going to El Salvador. These so-called Venezuelan gangs didn't have any due process. So how are we supposed to know if these folks are really gangs? Because of tattoos? I got a tattoo, you got a tattoo?
Yeah, I do.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything then. And I'm 100% sure that all 200 of those folks that got and are now sitting in the El Salvadorian prison, not all of them are criminals.
Yeah, for sure.
They were just here, overstayed their visa, and they just got hemped up. And it's all political theater. You know what I'm saying? They got Kristi Noem going back there in the jail. If you come here illegal, this was happening to you. This is not the country I grew up in. This is not the values of the United States. This is white supremacy in action. You know what I'm saying? But that's the topic for another podcast.
Well, I guess we can segue into that a little bit. So let's talk about the other policies that this administration has rolled out that we don't agree on, that's hurting our people of color, Asian communities.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Is there any kind of bigger ones that stand?
Well, yeah, I think when we say policy, we want to really define that. These aren't really policies. A lot of the things that's happened since this administration's come in office is just executive orders, right? Executive orders aren't law. They're just orders that directs agencies to do something, but I don't think there's any legal boundaries to comply to them. It's more of a threat. As you can see, since he's been in office, I mean, he's released hundreds and hundreds of executive orders, which is really just testing the boundaries of his power. And you can see they're defying judges. They're defying just disregard of the law. You know, they say that, you know, these illegal aliens coming here breaking our law, they are the worst perpetrators. If you want to talk about it, this dude has 34 felonies. But, you know, we're not talking, I don't want to talk about him on this podcast, man. He gets too much attention already. But the impacts of these rhetoric, these political rhetoric is real, right? You see families getting uprooted, families getting separated. Folks in fear. You have like folks in the construction industry. I was talking to a colleague of mine whose mother was undocumented and her family's undocumented. They were farm workers in Moses Lake. And since this administration's been in, they haven't been to work. They're scared, right? Yeah. And then when they haven't been to work, the crops don't get picked. They sit there and rot. And then the prices of food goes up because of that. So the impact is real. It's disastrous for one, and it's just a display of the incompetency of what's happening right now.
The greed, the evilness. Like I can't believe that people, our leaders, our political leaders that we voted to have the best interests of the American people in place are doing what they're doing to hurt Americans. Right. You know, hurt our economy, hurt our country.
Yeah.
And it's a really dangerous, scary time right now at a crossroad for America.
And what's alarming to me is the amount of folks who's cheering this on and is okay with it because it's not affecting them yet. Yeah. You know, I think the fundamental failure of a lot of folks that's cheering this on is the 2 or 3 degrees of separation. They won't feel any empathy or sympathy until it affects them directly or their family members.
That's a really good point, because right now they're trying to get rid of the Department of Education, right? And so these people that are running the country right now, their kids are all in private school,
right?
So they don't got to worry about normal kids get education, getting after school programs, after lunches, rural schools getting shut down,
right?
Support for our teachers, that's the first thing. But what I heard also is, you know, it's in the playbook of like anarchy, where if you take out people that are educated, then people can't rise up, because then people are just dumbed down, right? Yeah. So if you kind of take out the Department of Education, now people are more easier to be like sheep and do what you say, because there's no education.
Kind of like the Cambodian thing.
Yeah, like the Khmer Rouge. The first thing they do is eliminate the education, the educating the intellectuals, right? Because when you remove education, critical thinking, and thought, it's easier to exert power. It's easier to be susceptible to the propaganda. You know, if you look at the propaganda coming out in our country today, they're saying we're sending back criminals, blah 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 blah. But if you look at the reality of it, they're not. They're students. Here, the lab technician who's currently in ICE detention right now. These are regular, hardworking Americans who's been here for years that's being targeted, unfairly so, you know what I mean? So, and that's just to stoke fear, you know, like a lot of you said, it's the intention is so we will stay silent, right? Because if you want to connect it back to the Khmer Rouge time in Cambodia, my parents had to stay silent to survive, right? But if we're here in the United States and we believe in democracy, if we believe in the rule of law, if we believe in our Constitution and our First Amendment, we should not be silent. We should be speaking up as loud as hell, because we're protected to, right? We're protected to do so.
I feel we have this platform to speak up about stuff that's very important to the people. Yeah. Like, you know, there's a lot of information out there. And so we just want to inform people with the right information of what's happening right now. Yep. Yeah. And you know, there's propaganda, and then there's the truth. Right. And you know, whatever we're saying, go do your own research. Don't believe anything we say up here. Yeah. Go do your own research, and then you make an informed decision. But don't just be like sheep and like believe everything you hear. Yeah. There's some crazy stuff going on, and there's people really good at manipulating the truth.
Yeah, and I appreciate you both for bringing that up, because I think it's really important to speak truth to power. You know, there's so much noise today in media, social media, the internet, and you have a lot of other podcasters, you know, right-wing podcasters that's adamantly, intentionally spitting out disinformation, misinformation, and propaganda, right? So in order to really fight that, it takes folks like you and I who have these platforms and privileges to speak up. And it's what's important that we speak truth to power, stick with our experiences, and don't be gaslighted by the noise, right? So when we were talking about the impacts of these policies are real, you know, you might have a cousin or a family member that's in ICE right now going through it. So, and there's a lot of people experiencing things. So these things are real, because when we get on the internet and argue online about these talking points left or right, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day when your brother or your cousin or your mom or your grandmother is in ICE detention with no due process for no real reason. Then it becomes real, man. So real shit's happening in these streets.
I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of people, once it really affects their pocketbook, like, you know, then they're like, hold on, why is everything cost? And pretty soon it will be, with all the tariffs going on. Like, for example, the current administration is trying to get rid of Social Security. You know, you guys know what Social Security does for people? Like, my mother-in-law lives with us.
Yeah.
She gets Social Security. It's not that much.
Right.
It's enough for her to just live off, and then we help to take care of stuff, and the family help. But if she didn't get that check, like, you know, she could be on the like other people could be on the street.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
devastating.
But let's take one step back, right?
Yeah.
All the things happening right now, from all my research, all these cuts and all these and making the government smaller and cutting all these programs and stuff. The reason why they're doing all this, and do your own research, is to help billionaires and big corporations get more money. Keep more money. That's the only reason they're doing all this.
Yeah.
So do your own research, and I'm getting passionate about this.
Yeah.
Because that's the truth. So do your own research. But like so a billionaire can get more billions, and a big corporation can, instead of paying 10 billion in taxes, now they're only paying 5 billion in taxes. Guess where the other 5 billion is coming from? It's from all these cuts right here that they're doing to the American people, veterans, students, kids, our elderly. You know, they're trying to get rid of healthcare, like Medicare, Medicaid. You know how much that helps people that don't have access to healthcare go get treatment? Now all those things are, you know, if it's up to them, it's all gone.
Yeah.
So go do your own research, and maybe, you know, or you could stay silent, or you could speak up, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about things people can do to not allow this to happen. Like, let's talk about that, because people are like, all right, cool. We kind of know the truth now. But what can I do at home, sitting at this, watching this podcast?
Yeah. In reality, this is what you were speaking of these billionaires. It's a class war, right? When Rango says, do your research, go on YouTube, read a book about the Gilded Age. The Gilded Age was when America's prosperity was at its height, and these millionaires, the railroad barons, was trying to hoard all the wealth to them. That's when labor unions started, workers' rights, and all that stuff started, was during the Gilded Age. So this is nothing new. It's just happening again. And now we have a billionaire, the richest man in the world, who's unelected, going around making all these cuts. And what Rango says, there's evidence of that. It's not theoretical. You know, you got Doge cutting all these social safety nets that's taking care of Americans, like Rango's mother-in-law. My mom gets Social Security.
And us
you know,
in the future too.
Yeah, and us
Them,
in the future
too.
We are Social Security.
Yeah.
But the Social Security is our money.
Yeah.
We put the money in there so that we can have a retirement, or we can have something that it's not a lot.
Yeah, and they're doing this in plain sight right in front of us, because if you look at the FAA contract that Elon Musk is trying to eliminate to give to his company, Starlink, and then, you know, instead of using Verizon for the FFA thing, they, you know, all these things that these guys are doing is just siphoning the economy into their own pockets. And if you don't see that, then I hope you're a billionaire too that's getting rich off of it too.
I think so I have a good friend that we talk about politics all the time, and I don't even like politics, like, you know, because it can get so messy and dirty and evil, right, and like conniving and stuff, like, but you know, I'm older now, and this stuff affects us now, like our kids, so there was this, so I think as Americans, so Elon Musk gave like $240 million to the Trump administration to win the presidency,
campaign,
right?
Yeah.
So Trump, he owes him to do whatever he wants, right? So now Elon do whatever he wants. But before that, there's I think, don't quote me on this. It's called like this, like the Family Something Act, where the government allows anybody to donate to their election. So now if you let anybody donate whatever they want to your election, now they bought you.
Yeah.
Right? So then the big corporations have all these Republicans in their pocket, and some Democrats too, right? Everyone's getting bought. But if as America, we stop that, eliminate that so much, and then they raise funds by just normal ways from the people giving them money and not like these big corporations, then now it's a more of a fair playing field. Even playing field. And now the politicians can act as real politicians and do what's best for the people, not what's best for that one company,
that
one
you're
person.
beholden to.
So I think that it kind of starts there as Americans, that we kind of stop all that.
So, I mean, we talked about a lot of issues, and we heard it all over social media, heard it all over the news, everything, right? But the word is still now, how are we going to stop it or help? And, how are we going to, find a solution?
Yeah, the solution, I think there's no...
Wait 4 years. That's the solution.
It's kind of, the damage is going to ripple
beyond
for years. But I think...
It's going to be a ripple effect. It's going to be a lot of damage coming, so...
One of the things immediately that we can do here in our community is focus on our local governments, because the states have a lot of power. Washington State has a lot of power to protect us from the federal government, and thankfully we have a lot of progressive leaders in our state legislature. We have our Attorney General Nick Brown, who's adamantly, joining lawsuits and stuff. But for us individually, continue to talk about these topics, continue to share resources, continue to learn, continue to listen, continue to show up. And don't accept these things as normal, because as soon as we start normalizing these horrible behaviors, it's just going to get worse and get worse and get worse, because what this administration is doing is really just testing their power, right? They're testing it to see if you give them an inch, to see if they can get 6 inches. If they get 6 inches, they're going to go for a foot. So it's just going to keep going. So at every inch, at every movement they try to do, we have to resist at every stop, at every corner that we can. And we can do that by speaking up, organizing, supporting institutions that's doing this work. Donate to your organizations like Resistencia and, the Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project. Connect with like-minded folks, and connect with folks who have the privilege to speak up, like you as citizens. Get your white neighbors involved. You know what I'm saying? Find folks who are like-minded, and the message is strength and solidarity, right? We're stronger together, and the powers that be wants to conquer and divide, and we can't let that happen. Because if you think about it, there are more of us than there are more billionaires. They just have the power right now, but we have to take the power back, and we take the power back by coming together, unifying, and resist in solidarity.
Yeah, I'd say reach out, vote. Like when the time comes to vote, if you don't like what your congressman or that state representative is doing, then don't vote for that person, right? Because they're not
even
represented.
Local politics.
And
Seattle City Council
too.
members, your school board's important too. If you don't pay attention to these local politics and school boards or park boards, city council members, a lot of bad faith actors can get elevated to this position, who in turn make policies that doesn't benefit anyone but them. So we just got to be mindful and pay attention and just stay engaged. But most importantly, take care of yourself, take care of your mental, take care of your family.
I think that's really important.
Sure, for sure.
Because sometimes you get caught up in this stuff, and then you go down that rabbit hole of all those articles and news articles online and social media. Then you get caught up too, and then you start saying some crazy stuff, and now you're bent out of shape.
And now you're Kanye.
now you're Ye.
Now you're Ye. My bad. Yeah. Oh my God.
And at the end of the day, right? We gotta just take care of what's in front of us, like our family, our health, and make sure our pockets are right. That our money's okay, our money's good. Be careful. Don't make any big purchases, because you never know what's going on right now. I think we hit on a lot of really good subjects today. Really good point. So you're running for Tacoma City Council.
Yeah.
So share with us a little bit about what you're running for, what you stand on, and how we can support your cause.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I'm running for Tacoma City Council to represent District 4, which encompasses the east side and the south end. It's the neighborhood that I grew up in. It's the neighborhood my family established a foundation as refugees. So there was a lot of community, a lot of it was just a, although it was a lot of violence, gangs and stuff, I felt like the community embraced us, Tacoma embraced us, and really gave us a lot of opportunity for upward mobility and to be in the position where I am now. And, the seat for city council came up because our former city council member, Catherine Ushka, rest in peace, Catherine Ushka, passed away due to cancer, and the seat was open, and the city of Tacoma opened up for an appointment process. I went through that appointment process. I felt like I was the best candidate to represent the district because of my work history, not just because of my work history, because of my lived
You
experience.
used to work for Jay Inslee, right?
Yeah, I was a digital media manager. I managed Governor Inslee's social media. I worked really closely with him for a couple of years and just really grew privy to how government works. And I've been in a lot of rooms where I've seen policy decisions are made at the highest level of our government, and a lot of these folks don't have the lived experiences. I think to making these policies, they might have the credentials and the qualifications, going to college, studying politics and sociology and all that, but I think the lived experiences and going through what I went through, struggling through poverty, rising out of poverty, seeing what helped my family. I think this experience, your experiences, everybody here is perspective is just as important, and we need to be in these rooms who are making these decisions. So that's one of the reasons why I'm running. And another reason why I'm running is because I still think I'm the best candidate to represent the district, having grown up here. The metaphor I like to use is, when you grow up in the community in the hood, you kind of know the back roads to everything. You kind of know the nuances, what the family really needs. So a lot of policymakers aren't from the community. They sit in these rooms and they make decisions from the top down, not from the bottom up, right? So I feel like I bring a perspective that's unique. I bring a perspective from a refugee who's been through poverty, who's was able to have opportunities to get an education, and my career led me to be close to our governor, and I just feel like we need some real true representation, and this is the time. And Tacoma is at a pivotal moment, right? We're electing a new mayor, we're getting a new city council, a city manager, and we're getting a new police chief. And largely the consensus of the politics, the current body of the council members in Tacoma, that there's not a lot of trust and transparency, and I'm running to restore that.
All right, let's go. Are you guys here first? What first line? Chun.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and also just thank you so much for being an advocate and just your commitment, your dedication to just helping the people and just hopefully just changing our lives. We need more people like you who can be the voice for us if those who cannot have a voice, right? And we need more people like you, and thank you so much for being here today. And until the next time, take care of yourself, and then also take care of each other.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me, and we can only move through this together. So,
yes.
Peace.
I guess it's my turn, so let me introduce myself. Yes, Silong is a name, and I produce myself through these beats, through these words. It's the truth you felt, and if it isn't, well, you didn't prove it yet. Nope,